Mel Gibson is one of the most polarizing figures Hollywood has ever produced. An A-list action icon, an Oscar-winning director, and a man who went from beloved to blacklisted to somehow back again. But in the last few years, a new legend has grown and developed online, and it surrounds Mel Gibson calling out Hollywood's darkest secrets, trafficking, Epstein's network, and overall corruption in the industry, and that he was secretly working on a project to expose it all. Here's the problem. Some of those viral claims don't hold up when you trace them. Some are confirmed misinformation, while others actually hold water. So today we're doing the real story. What Mel Gibson actually did, what he actually said, what Hollywood actually did to him, and how the internet connected him with everything relating to the Epstein files. Let's start from the beginning. Mel Gibson was born in Peekskill, New York, but as a kid moved out of the United States over to Australia. And that move mattered, because Australia didn't just give him an accent and an edge. It dropped him into a film industry that in the late 70s was building a gritty identity of its own. He studied in Sydney at NIDA, National Institute of Dramatic Art, which is one of Australia's most respected drama schools. And almost immediately, he was thrown into work that doesn't feel Hollywood. It felt raw. For example, in Mad Max, he isn't a polished action hero. He's a man with grief behind his eyes. Quiet, dangerous, and cracked. And that character becomes a global export. The image of a future cop turning into a survivor. What's underrated about Gibson's early years is that he wasn't just the tough guy, because over in Australia he was already being positioned as a serious actor. Then Hollywood starts calling, but he doesn't arrive as a typical American-made star. He arrives pre-forged, and this matters because Hollywood didn't create his identity. It bought the identity that he owned. By the mid-80s, the pipeline was clear, leading Mel Gibson to become a studio weapon. Then comes Lethal Weapon, and Gibson becomes something else, a persona. Martin Riggs isn't just an action lead, he's a volatile nerve. He's grief and adrenaline. He's funny, unhinged, brilliant in fight, and constantly on the edge of self-destruction. And that's the key. Audiences didn't just watch Mel Gibson, they were watching a man that looked like he could explode at any time. But it felt human enough to root for. And this is where the bad boy label starts to stick. Not only because of the characters, but because Gibson's public image starts feeling like an extension of that danger. Some people will say that Mad Max is where his career started, while others will argue that Lethal Weapon is where he truly found his footing and became a household name that so many people loved. Here's the pivot. Gibson didn't just want to star, he wanted to control.
And the Oscar goes to Mel Gibson for Braveheart.
Braveheart turns him into an Oscar-winning director and producer, the kind of celebrity that changes how Hollywood treats you. He's no longer just talent, he's leadership. Braveheart was known for its brutality and gruesome scenes, but it was highly touted for its success as well as brutal nature. Then The Passion of the Christ hits like a cultural grenade. Massive box office, massive debate, and controversy that follows for years.
According to video monitoring services, in the last 2 days, Mel Gibson's movie was mentioned at least 9,326 times on radio and TV. Who needs advertising?
All that controversy surrounding Mel Gibson's film The Passion has turned into big dollar signs.
Overkill began even before the film was done. Allegations of anti-Semitism. That meant controversy. And controversy meant coverage.
1 month ago today, this amazing film opened in theaters. And now, we proud few gather here as a people brought together by its message.
I'll be more convincing than Mel Gibson when he apologized to the Jews.
I'm really, really sorry about your big noses. I'm really sorry about how greedy you are. But most of all, I'm really sorry about your dirty, underhanded, backstabbing ways. Your #1 dirty Jew fan, Mel Gibson.
Now, Passion of the Christ was denied by all studios, so Mel Gibson funded the production of this film himself, costing him around $30 million. He had so much on the line when producing Passion of the Christ, where if it failed, he was doomed. But it far from failed, grossing over $600 million, which you can definitely say was a success. Despite being criticized drastically for the contents of the film, both its graphic nature and the religious beliefs, he can rest on his shoulders that he produced a massively successful film. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it is actually brutal to watch. Next, we should discuss Apocalypto. You can see a filmmaker obsessed with intensity, human brutality, survival, faith, violence, and redemption. These themes will matter later because they shape how people interpret Mel Gibson versus the Hollywood storyline. As you can tell from Apocalypto, Passion of the Christ, and Braveheart, the films that Mel Gibson liked to produce all had a brutal nature. Then everything collapses, publicly, loudly.
Mel Gibson was pulled over early Friday morning for speeding and drunk driving. It could have been a standard celebrity traffic stop. But it's what the star who first became famous as Mad Max allegedly did next that has Hollywood talking. Reporter Harvey Levin first broke the story.
He became uncooperative, profane, threatening, at times violent, banging himself against the car, inside the car, tried to escape.
Levitt obtained the arresting deputy's notes, which say the handcuffed actor also began a barrage of anti-Semitic remarks.
The Jews are responsible for all the wars, asking the deputy, was he Jewish?
In 2006, Gibson is arrested for a DUI and an anti-Semitic rant becomes public. This triggers massive backlash and long-term career damage. Media coverage and summaries of the incident spread widely, and Gibson apologizes publicly afterward. This becomes the defining story for years. Mel Gibson is toxic. And here's where it gets complicated. Because in Hollywood, scandal isn't always fatal, but some scandals are.
I don't walk around in tight clothes. I stay at home for most of the time.
Public, and it's a embarrassment to me. You look like a honey, and if you get raped by a pack, it's your fault. All right?
That is how Mel Gibson began his more than 8-minute long rant, posted Monday by RadarOnline.com. In it, the actor sounds completely unhinged, threatening his ex-girlfriend Oksana Grigorieva during a phone call she apparently recorded.
You need medication.
I need a woman. I don't need medication. You need a f***ing bat in the side of the head. How about that?
40-year-old Grigorieva is trying to get custody of their 8-month-old daughter. She filed a complaint with police last week that launched a domestic violence investigation against the 54-year-old actor. In the recording, Grigorieva says Gibson punched her in the face.
You were hitting a woman with a child in her hands. You, what kind of man is that? Hitting a woman when she's holding a child in her hand, breaking her teeth twice in the face. What kind of man is that?
Oh, you're all angry now.
You're gonna get to, you know what? You're gonna answer one day, boy, you're gonna answer.
Yeah, I'll put you in a rose garden, you understand that? Because I'm capable of it. You understand that?
At one point, the actor gets so worked up, he's left gasping for air. Gibson was once a high-flying action hero, but now it's his career that's going up in flames. The actor's longtime talent agency dropped him last week after another expletive-filled recording surfaced.
Almost anybody with an ounce of compassion is offended by this man right now, and nobody in Hollywood wants to be the one to say, yeah, I'll be in business with him.
And Gibson's image becomes radioactive in an industry that depends on alliances, reputation, and who's willing to take heat for working with you. Then slowly, the comeback begins.
Dude, I gotta tell you something. Last night on Showtimes, I saw some Lethal Weapon 2.
Lethal Weapon 2 starring the racist-ass Mel Gibson.
I know, but I gotta tell you right up front and truthfully, racist-ass Mel Gibson is still kind of my
And what changes the temperature is directing.
Mel Gibson's directorial comeback, Hacksaw Ridge, has received a 10-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. Screened in front of a public audience of around 1,000 people on Sunday, applause started the moment the credits began rolling.
Go get you home.
A successful film can reframe the conversation in Hollywood because money and prestige are a language that everyone speaks. Hacksaw Ridge becomes a proof of work. Whatever people think of Mel Gibson personally, the filmmaker can still deliver. And now he's sitting in that strange Hollywood category. Controversial, but bankable. Difficult, but valuable. A man that the system can criticize in public, but still make room for in private. Now we should get into his claims and conspiracy theories. When people say the Epstein files, they usually imagine one thing. A single list that proves everything. But reality is messier. The Epstein files is a catch-all label for different sources. Court filings and civil lawsuits, evidence and discovery tied to Maxwell's case and Epstein's case as well. Investigative documents being released, and an internal government that was reviewing how Epstein actually got favorable treatment while in prison. Some releases include names of famous people, but a name appearing in the documents doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. In some cases, it's a mention in passing, a contact entry, a flight appearance. It needs context. And many times there are allegations that are yet to be proven. The Epstein story becomes one of the most disturbing examples of how power insulates people and protects them. The case begins with a local investigation in Palm Beach, expands, and then here's the part that still enrages people. Lands in a resolution over in 2008 that has been widely criticized as extremely favorable to Epstein. Essentially, Epstein was arrested and given a cozy getaway in prison with 12 hours per day of work release where he was able to leave the prison and be out on his own. He was supposed to remain in his home, but there are very many instances that he was found out on his plane, out in public, and nothing was done. In 2019, Epstein is arrested again, federally.
A decade after his apparent sweetheart deal on prostitution charges, Jeffrey Epstein is arrested in July 2019 on federal sex trafficking charges involving minors in the early 2000s. Just a month later, August 10th, he's found dead in his jail cell. The medical examiner rules it as suicide, but irregularities in jail protocol fuel conspiracy theories and public mistrust.
Before trial, before all of his victims were able to share their peace in court, he dies in custody. This is another accelerant for speculation and mistrust. Many people believing that he didn't take his life himself, and some believing that he's actually not dead at all. Then Maxwell, his sidekick girlfriend, was prosecuted and sentenced. And finally, the system puts a major Epstein associate behind bars for a long time. Now, many people at this point in time believe that the woman in prison that should be Maxwell is actually not her at all. As time passes, the public keeps demanding transparency, especially as document batches are released and there are political fights regarding what is and what isn't included. Because it seems that not only names of the victims have been protected in these documents, but also of the people committing the crimes. So where does Mel Gibson actually fit into this? The internet version says that Mel Gibson was making an Epstein documentary, or Mel is exposing Hollywood for trafficking. But some reporting and fact-checking will tell that it's actually something different.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human trafficking.
In 2023, viral posts claimed that Mel Gibson was producing a multi-part documentary about child trafficking. sometimes explicitly tying things in to Epstein. This documentary, or I guess we can call it this movie, was called Sound of Freedom. The industry would go and try to say that this documentary was not a documentary at all, and that none of the information was actually going to be based off of any fact whatsoever. While all the while, Sound of Freedom was giving a bird's eye view with hints throughout of this messy trafficking system that was actually going on with the upper elite and in Hollywood. Much of this Hollywood denial was just trying to put another sign on Mel Gibson's back that he was actually crazy and there was no weight behind anything that he was trying to share.
Sound of Freedom has a message filled with hope and inspiration. The film sparks conversations and encourages people to help end trafficking in their own community. Go see it.
Maybe Mel Gibson wasn't exposing Epstein specifically, but he was definitely shedding light on the dark secrets and the mistreatments of many young people within the Hollywood industry. He referred to the industry as a crazy town where you don't actually believe what you're seeing, but then you come to realize that it's actually truthful and that you weren't crazy all along. But unfortunately, until recently, most people did think that he was making up stories and they didn't believe. Many people are still in disbelief regarding the documents from the Epstein files, and they're not going to know the truth until we get these unredacted versions of the documents that'll give us more clarity into who the victims are, as well as who are the people committing the crimes. Mel Gibson's life is already a movie. Immigrant kid turned global icon, action hero turned Oscar director, scandal turned exile, exile turned comeback, and finally, belief in his words. And since the rise of the Epstein files, people are finally opening their eyes and ears and starting to believe things that he's been saying for years. The truth is, Mel Gibson's real story doesn't require a conspiracy to be compelling. And the Epstein story doesn't require fantasy to be horrifying. Because the documented facts are scary enough. But Mel Gibson wasn't the only whistleblower. You're going to want to check out what Roseanne Barr had to say.